everybody. Welcome to Coffee Hour. My name is Paul Abernathy, the most hated electrical educator on the universe, according to Cy Porter. Welcome to our morning show every morning at 8 a.m. here on the East Coast, where we get your day started for the real electricians out there, not the wannabe home inspectors, but the real electricians out there who join us for a little bit of coffee, a little Java, a little tea, maybe something else, depending on if you work the night shift and you're getting off. Whatever it may be, thanks for joining me. Glad to have you here for the show. And if you've never joined us before, this is something we do every morning, Monday through Friday, unless I have to be out of town or I'm on a business trip somewhere, and then you'll get a replay. But it's where we get together and you can ask questions, let us know what's going on, get your day started. It's just a great way to get together in the morning. And we learn some code and have a discussion. And I'll do my best to answer those questions. Again, if I can't answer something for you right off the fly, it's because, again, generally I do a lot of things off the cuff. So maybe we have to look something up and I'll catch it on a next episode or something like that. But again, I'm always out there. I had been getting, you always know when you're getting a lot of exposure is when all of a sudden the haters come out of the woodwork because they see a video that you might have done 2 or 3 years ago and you said something about somebody or did something, and then all of a sudden the little fanboys come out of the woodwork from everywhere, and you start getting all of these posts and stuff like that. So it's always hilarious for me to see it. But at any rate, I'm just glad to be here, glad to be able to bring the show to you and bring it from the studio. And so we're going to be going into part 5 today. So this has been a long series, but it's a lot of information, services and equipment, electrical equipment. And we've worked our way up through talking about devices and talking about all different types of things. So I encourage you, if you haven't watched the replays, is to make sure that that you go back and occasionally there will be people on the social medias, YouTubes, that'll go watch a video and do timestamps. I don't necessarily do timestamps, but sometimes people will watch the video and they'll do a timestamp and then they'll do a post and they'll say at this time is this topic and this topic. I don't do that. I probably should do that, but I just don't take the time to do it. But yeah, again, make sure you check those replays because you never know what you might have missed, or you might have come in late, or you never know what topic we're going to talk about during the show. So at least I do the parts, so you kind of know that it's one piece right into the next type of thing. So today we're at part 5 of services and electrical equipment, and we're going to be starting off talking about grouping of service disconnects a little bit. And then we'll get a little further into that. We'll talk about some overcurrent protection services, and we'll go look at the NEC, because I always think it's important for us to, anytime we get a chance when we're talking about code, that we should take an opportunity to go look at the NEC in case we have any questions or whatever, that type of thing. So again, the National Electrical Code in itself, it's not as simple as a home inspector in Arizona climbing in an attic and looking at things that are obvious. I mean, sometimes things, when it comes to code, you really have to look at things and break it down. So it's a little different than somebody who just wants social media attention, that type of thing. You gotta go look deeper when it comes to code. Before we get started in today, though, as always, I live vicariously through you folks that join us. So we want to make sure we give some shout outs. And again, let us know who you are, where you're from, what you got going on. If you're testing, if you got any questions on your test, that you know the question in detail, I'm more than happy to answer that question. I think what we're going to do is that I have been getting emails and requests about the Q&A sessions. Just wanted me to answer code like I used to do, just off the cuff. You got code questions and you want to get them answered, that type of thing. I mean, obviously the Let's Ask Paul's designed for that, but I'm thinking that we're probably going to do a Let's Ask Paul Friday. So what do y'all think about that? Give me some thumbs up. What do you think? Y'all are the regulars. Y'all the ones that join us each week. If you want to have a Let's Ask Paul Friday, we can ask code questions and we'll look it up and I'll give you my thoughts on it. All those pressing things. Maybe you want to ask I don't know. Maybe you want to post the Nika question of the day and post it, and we'll give you my interpretation of it, that type of thing, or dig deeper or whatever. But it looks like a lot of people want a Let's Ask Paul type of episode on here once a week. So I don't know. What do you think? Friday, or do you think it should start off Monday? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll let the majority rule on that. But people do seem to want me to answer code questions, whether it's in the field stuff, whether you've run into it, that type of thing. So I'm thinking, what about a Let's Ask Paul Friday scenario, and we'll just make that a part of the show if that's what people want. So let me know. So let me know in the comments, whatever platform you're on. If you're on Instagram, your comments won't show up here. But if you're watching on Instagram, feel free to post your comments there. I will see your comments there as well. I don't think that EV Mux has figured out how to get the comments from Instagram into the comment console. I don't think they figured that out yet. Also, people have been wanting to be able to watch the replays of these shows over on Fast Tracks Tube, whereas you can't watch replays. You can only watch the live. But due to requests that people send in, and I try to appease the requests, they said they would like to have the ability to watch the replays when we play replays in the evening over there as well. So we're going to add that player on that page where you go watch the live. Underneath it, there'll be another player, and that player it'll say above it replay. So that type of thing. So, or encore or whatever, it'll say underneath it. So that you can watch, if you want to watch the replay there, you can watch it there. We're just trying to give everybody the ability to watch. And again, I never twist anybody's arm to watch anything. So if you want to watch it, great, that type of thing. It was funny because one of the comments that I got from somebody, and I read all comments. So if you're out there and you're a hater and you send me a negative comment and you think, ooh, I want to make Paul upset and sad, I read them. I don't care about them, but I read them. And one of the comments was like, boy, you think you're something because you've got, only 30,000 followers and this guy's got 500, 600, 700,000. It's because I don't put out bullshit. I don't put out the little tweaky videos that get attention that the fanboys love. And, I just don't do that kind of thing. I don't do they show you how to twist a screw on a receptacle videos. I just don't do it. I do code. That's it. And sometimes it's code. You use what we have for a short amount of time, and then you move on. The kind of content that I create is not the kind of stuff that I think is glamorous and amorous, that it's going to be earth-shattering people. It's code. It's very basic. You use it for what you need it, and I realized that early on, that type of thing. And it's also a testament that I'm not an attention whore, that type of thing. I'm not worried about the clicks and the subscribers and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to continue to do, and I guarantee you, if you go back and look at history, look at other people that's done podcasts, look at other people that's done videos. There's one thing I can guarantee you, that over the long haul, I outlast all of them. I'm still here after 18 years of doing videos, 19, almost 20 years of doing it, back on AOL and podcasts. I'm still here. I'm still doing it. And in fact, we're even doing this weekly, every day of the week. So I usually say people that talk shit, go back and look and see what their body of work is. How long have they been doing it? Are they still doing it? Are they doing it regularly? That should tell you a whole lot, that type of thing. It's longevity. It's the ability to stick around, that type of thing. So anyway, I should mention also, I will be at NFPA conference. If you're going to be there, I'd love to see you. I'm not going to be at the thing where you go around and look at the vendors. I'm not showing up for that. I've done that for so many years, and now I'm kind of dialing back that type of stuff. But I will be at the code hearings. So if you're going to be there at the code hearings, I'd love to hook up with you, say hey to you. Sometimes I have evenings free that, we can grab some coffee or something. I'd love to chat with you, that type of thing. But I will be out there in Vegas from I think it's the June 19th, 20th, 21st, something like that. Thursday, Fridays, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that type of thing. And then I'm flying out the next day. So love to see you if you're there. Also, I will be at the NECA. As of right now, I'll be at the NECA. I mean, you never know, but right now I will be at the NECA. So, and that will be working the booth at the Encore Wire Prismium booth. So I'd love to see you. I don't know the exact dates. Maybe somebody else knows. I don't know when Nika, I know it's in Chicago. Not my favorite city. Not because of Chicago. It's so busy. That's the part. But as far as Illinois and Chicago, I have nothing wrong with that. It's so busy, and I'm against the busy, that type of thing. I'm trying to wind this stuff down, and just stick to writing the books and comment, and video and course creation and stuff like that. So, anyway, let's do some shout outs real quick. Paul, what's up? Thanks for joining us. Tino's in the house. Thank you, Tino. Glad to have you here. David is in the house. Thank you, David. David's our CMECP from down in Florida. Great guy. What's up, High Voltage Hands? Good morning. You are early. I saw you in there. You got in here. Definitely early today. What is up, Skyattle or Seattle or Seattle? I'm going to get it right one day. What's up, Jonathan? Glad to have you here, my friend. What do we got here? Let's see. Brandon, hopefully you're studying, Brandon, focusing on those calculations. Okay, that type of thing. Jeff did mention to me, and I don't know what you folks thought about it, because I always love to bounce things off of you. Jeff said, why don't we take the Fast Tracks program and pull out just the things that focus heavily on the calcs and do it that way? He said, why don't we pull that out and create a course that's just heavily focused on the calculations? And then I said, well, why don't I do that? And then why don't I infuse that with some videos that are very specific to certain calculations, right? And embed that in there and create the course that way. Because I tell you, through the years, I get people ask me, say, Paul, do you have anything that just is calculations? And I'm like, no, the course is the course, and you can get it all, whether you want, but more and more people are asking for it. And, so Jeff, we're looking at that. In fact, I have a meeting later today with Jeff. We're going to conference call. He's up in Richmond area. We're going to conference call today and see if that is something that we want to do. Okay, we'll see. But again, people are asking that. So we can try to appease what people are asking. What's up, Manny? Love it. Code Nerd's in the house. Got his green Code Nerd hoodie on. Thanks for joining us, Manny. Appreciate you over on YouTube. What's up, Nepo? Good morning. Glad to have you here. What's up, Rob? Glad to have you here, my friend. Code Nerd's in the house. Brandon says, can I talk about Fire Pump 695 sometime? Yeah, if you have any questions, Brandon, let's do Let's Ask Fridays. If that's what everybody likes, then we'll talk. You can answer any question you want about 695. I do have over on, I don't know if it's the Tube or over on our YouTube channel, a 4-part series, and I think it's a podcast on 695 where I cover all kinds of stuff for 695. So it is a 4-part series. I'm not sure if it's over on the Tube. I'll have to check. But I have done a 4-part series on Fire Pump 695. So again, that is available. It is out there, that type of thing. But sure, I'll answer any question on 695. Here's your homework, Brandon. Put together your questions that you may have on fire pumps, and bring them to Let's Ask Paul Friday. How about that? We'll do that this Friday. We'll at least start it. I hadn't had anybody. Of course, I'm a little slow in the comments, so I hadn't anybody say that it sounds good to have Let's Ask Paul Friday. But where you can bring up topics and Q&A and ask your questions rather than a lesson. I haven't had anybody say anything about that yet. So, but maybe that's what people want. What's up, Adam? Glad to have you here. We are actually going to talk about the disconnect rules probably in today's episode or Wednesday's episode. We're almost at that point to talk about those things. So I did see that comment, Miss Electric, talking about that, the 6 disconnect rule. So we are getting close to where we are going to talk a little bit about that. But if you have any questions about that, again, 6 disconnect rule is disconnect for the services. Y'all all know that it no longer allows you to have the 6 disconnects in a single cabinet. Okay. Whereas you used to have it where you could bring in and you have 6 large breakers, let's say, and you could do that. You can't do that anymore because if you remove any one of them, there's no way to kill power to the bus, so it's a hazard. So they've removed the ability to have them all in one enclosure, but you can still have up to 6 grouped together, 6 individual panels with main breakers, or 6 separate service disconnects grouped in one location. We'll hopefully talk a little bit about that today, but we still have that grouping rule in the code. You just can't put them all in one in cabinet anymore, which was very convenient years ago for data centers and industrial facilities where you had multiple services because of the size. That you could bring the service in and hit a big cabinet with 6 600 amp breakers or whatnot, and then feed other panels throughout the facility, and that be considered okay as far as the service disconnect. And then obviously that got changed in the code because it is a hazard. But at the end of the day, it was very convenient back when we used to do that, design systems. What's up? I look at some thumbs up. Hell yeah. So it looks like people want yes, but Rob says yes, but not every Friday. Well, what do you want on a Friday in replace of that? Because we'll have 4 days of lessons and we'll have 1 day of Let's Ask Paul. So what would you want, Rob, in place of that? Let's see here. Paul says it must include beatbox. Let's see here. Rob says, thank you for putting the replays on Fast Tracks Tube. Yep, should get that later on today. That should be on there for the replays. Will be there. It'll be underneath the video for the live. It'll be down below it. It'll say replay or above it, that type of thing. So let's see. Oh, David says at noon. Dude, I don't want to have to do more lives than what I'm doing. Okay, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. is enough. I don't want no noon one. Let's see here. Good morning, Edgar. Thanks. Let's see here. What's up, Joseph? Thanks for joining us up in New Jersey. Glad to have you here. Good morning, Rob. Okay. Let's see here. Good morning, Tino RGV from South Texas. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here.
Woo. Big dog.
There we go. Good morning. Good morning to you, Red Dog. Glad to have you here. Gregory. Glad to have you here, Gregory. Good morning, David. Glad to have you here. Adam says, if you're going to do Friday, make sure I have plenty of coffee. Yeah, no doubt. I am long-winded, so I do tend to go into a lot of things. So, all right, so good. We're all caught up, kind of. Brandon says he just finished derating parts 1 and part 2. Do you feel more knowledgeable now, Brandon, on ampacities, adjustments, corrections, and how all that works? That type of thing. Yep. So that's what that derating demystified video goes into. Okay, just get you a little more. Tino says, hey, wait a minute. Only one Tino in here. All right, let's get into today's lesson, okay? Elwood says, am I still with Encore? Absolutely, I am. I'm still their Director of Technical Services for Encore and Prismium Corporation. Absolutely, I am, as long as they will have me. All right, let's get into the lessons here today. So just ironically, we're talking about service disconnects and grouping requirements. We've worked our way up. What's up, Pepe? Is that it? Pepe, watching over on the Fast Tracks Tube. Thanks for joining us over on the tube. So let's see here. Grouping of service disconnects. This is probably a very typical application. I'll zoom this in real quick just so you see it. This is probably a very typical application. We call this a 400 amp service. It's really one of those scenarios where, you probably have a 200 and 200 here, right? That type of thing. Okay, very common. And they are right here together. They are, again, we talked about yesterday about the concept of grouping. They're right there, whether it's on left and right. I would still very much consider these grouped in the same location. I don't have no problem with that. All right, says, so the 2 to 6 breakers or sets of fuses are acceptable as the overcurrent device to provide overload protection. The sum of the ratings of the circuit breakers or fuses shall be permitted to exceed the ampere of the service conductors, provided the calculated load does not exceed the ampacity of the service conductor. So that's a lot, and I'm not so sure I like how the presentation brings that. So I think it's important that we look at the NEC to kind of get an understanding of what that's talking about. So one of the general rules, obviously, for the NEC is having the overcurrent protection, right? And you're going to have this overcurrent protection when it comes to at the panel. And so the overcurrent protection, overcurrent encompasses what? Overcurrent covers short circuit, ground fault, and overload. Unfortunately, at the service and the conductors that are supplying it, you really can't get anything but overload protection, right? Because those conductors are on the supply side of the overcurrent protected device. And so typically the overcurrent protected device trips because of what happens on the load side of it, whether it's too much current running through it, that type of thing, or so it's overloaded, or there's a short circuit, that type of thing, or a ground fault. All those type of things will clear that breaker. But when it comes to the service conductors coming in, only thing they're going to see is overload, to be honest with you. So we look at the requirements of 230.90. So where required, it says each ungrounded service conductor shall have overload protection, right? So that's your general statement, general rule that you're going to have that overload protection. Again, on the service conductors, that's about all we can give is overload. Even though, again, we're going to be hitting a breaker that's going to have short circuit, ground fault, and overload protection. But as far as, again, those service conductors, it's just overload protection. Everything on the load side, the bus, everything like that is going to be afforded the short circuit, ground fault protection as well as the overload, that type of thing. Okay, so now what we're looking at is right here. This is just kind of to read the statement so you understand that you have to have this overload protection on these ungrounded conductors. So it says such protection shall be provided by an overcurrent device in series with each ungrounded service conductor that has a rating or setting not higher, okay, so this is the overcurrent protection, is not higher than the ampacity of the conductor. So that's the general rule, right? If it's 200 amp overcurrent protective device, then you need to have conductors that are rated for 200 amps, right? That's typically the general rule, right? It says a set of fuses shall be considered all the fuses required to protect all the ungrounded conductors of a circuit. Single pole circuit breakers grouped in accordance with 230.71b shall be considered as one protective device. Okay, so if you did look at this, by the way, this is just basically grouping, and you get ways to do that. Okay, you could have a panel board with a main breaker. You have separate breakers with single switches in it to together act as one, that type of thing. You have switchboard allowances. Okay, so that's all it's saying there. And again, you'll notice that the allowance to have all of them in one cabinet and have 6 breakers in there and 6th row type of thing, that's no longer there anymore. Okay, it's not allowed anymore to do that when it comes to for the services. Okay. All right, so anyway, requiring us to have, what's up, Alex? Glad to have you here. So we have, when we realize that, we go, well, wait a minute, services typically can be different, and how we approach this, right? So we have allowances, for example, where we know that a 4-aught is good for 180 amps, but we terminate it on a 200 amp overcurrent device. So wait a minute. We're not meeting the rule here in general. We're like, oh, that conductor is only good for 180 amps, aluminum 4-aught. How can I terminate that on a 200 amp overcurrent device based on this general rule right here? Okay, well, that's when you'll get into different exceptions. Now, the one exception that I just talked about, this is the example I gave you of the 180 terminating on a 200 amp overcurrent device as long as the calculated load doesn't exceed 180 amps. That one ends up being down here under this exception, like here, right? So this is an example where it says the overload protection in accordance with the conductor's ampacities of 310.12, that's that 83% rule, shall be permitted for single-phase dwelling services. So that's an example, and a lot of people ask me that. They go, well, this rule here says that the conductors have to have the same ampacity as the overcurrent device. Okay. But then they realize, they say, well, wait a minute. what about the 83% rule allowance? If you meet all the conditions, isn't that conductor going to be smaller than the overcurrent device that it's terminating into? And the answer is yes. But again, it is all based on meeting the various criteria in 310.12. And if you meet all that, then it is considered okay, and it's still considered protected. Okay, not a problem. Now, the other big one here, and I only talk about some of the major ones here, is exception number 2. Exception number 2 to this general rule is fuses and circuit breakers with a rating or setting that complies with 240.4b, right? And what is that, by the way? That is the next size up rule that we talk about all the time. If you comply with all of these things, which you do on a daily basis, then it's saying, look, if you comply with all of this, then you're okay. So this is another reason why, if I have a 4-aught aluminum, and let's say I'm not utilizing 310.12, maybe I'm just saying, okay, I have a 4-aught aluminum service conductor, and it's good for 180 amps. If I follow the general rule in 230.90, then I cannot put a 180 amp conductor on a 200 amp rated device. And you're saying for the service, right? And at the end of the day, you look at the exception number 2, and people always are questioning this stuff. And you go, wait a minute, why can't I use the next size up rule? If I meet all the conditions, why can't I? And so again, becomes a great debate with people. They don't understand that, yeah, as long as my calculated load, and that's why I harp on people all the time, this is not something that your little home inspector can do, okay? This is the stuff I harp on all the time, where you have to be able to do a calculation. You have to understand the calculation. I mean, you can go through guessing and just, we have a lot of forgiveness in conductors and a lot of forgiveness that people don't take into consideration. But if you know how to do it and you're that skilled electrician and you know how to calculate things, then you can look at it and say, well, wait a minute, I have an aluminum 4-aught conductor that's good for 180 amps. My calculated load is only 170 amps. Can I terminate that 180 amp conductor on that 200 amp overcurrent device at the service and meet the overload protection requirements of 230.90? The exception says I can. And you do it every day, whether you think you do or not. But you do need to know your load calculation. Now, the good news is, look, today, and you've seen this, and we also know that this is the case because the code is changing in the 2026 to lower the VA per square foot from 3 VA down to 2 VA per square foot. And because of LED lighting, because of all the things that we've done over the last couple of years for energy efficiency and how equipment's being created and more efficient, then at the end of the day, the loads are coming down. So the code's not changing for it. It's still saying that you can do this. If the next size up rule applies, you can apply it. But to be honest with you, I would venture to say, that in your house, if you have a 200 amp service, you could probably have almost everything turned on. Obviously, you're not going to load all your receptacles up. You can turn all your lighting on, and you're probably not going to pull more than 75, 80 amps at max through your whole house, even with everything on. Even when you turn your range on, because it's cycling at any given time. All those type of things. And so unless you're turning on heat strips and you're in an area where it's cold and you have 15 kW or whatever heat strips, then that's going to be the majority of your load. But at the end of the day, your other loads are going to be diversified out. So you're not going to have that much load, right? So, but when you do a load calculation, you're taking values, and yeah, we're applying a demand to them, but we're taking values that will probably never reach in a dwelling application. Probably never reach it, okay? But for calculations, you have to know how to do it, okay? So you have to be skilled enough to be able to figure out how to do all that type of stuff. All right, so exception number 3 is just letting us know another example. I didn't look at exception number 3 while I was there. All that talk, and I didn't even look at exception number 3. So we explained exception number 2, which is probably used every day of the week. We explained exception number 5, which is when you get the 83%. So that explains how you can do that. And then, of course, you have one for fire pumps here. Exception number 3, which is what the lesson was talking about. It says the 2 to 6 circuit breakers or sets of fuses shall be permitted as the overcurrent device to provide the overload protection. The sum. Now, here's the important part that a lot of people get this confused. Now, by the way, if you don't know what we're talking about, this is an example where you might have a wireway and you have up to 6 disconnects coming out, service disconnects coming out of that wireway, and then you have one service coming in that's supplying all of those disconnects through a wireway, and it's popping up into the various service disconnects. Okay, could be in any number of type of occupancy structures that this could be take place. We do have an illustration that we'll show you from Link. But what it's saying is, it's saying that the sum of the ratings of the circuit breakers, in other words, this is another thing that people get confused. You can add up all of the breakers' ratings, okay, for the service disconnects. You could add them all up, okay, and they shall be permitted to exceed the ampacity of the service conductors. Okay, so you could have service conductors that are good for 300, let's say, and 10 amps, but you could have a set of breakers up to 6 service disconnects and grouped in one location. They could add up to like 350 amps, and you're saying, well, man, wait a minute. Collectively, that's 350 amps if you add the rating of the breakers, but the conductors supplying it only have an ampacity for 310, and that is okay. That's not a problem either, as long as you've done a load calc and you know that your load for all of these are not going to exceed the rating of those service conductors. So there's allowance for this. So this is another example where people a lot of times will, I get this, home inspectors are also bad for this, or commercial inspectors, they'll look at it and they'll just start adding up the overcurrent devices. And they might see 6 services grouped in one location, service disconnect, and they start adding them up and go, oh, these conductors supplying all of this is not large enough. Well, maybe it is based on a load calculation that they did, okay? And so that's what it here. And it says, again, provided that the calculated load, again, that means calculating, you've done the math, okay, does not exceed the ampacity of the service conductors. All right, and so one of the examples it shows you is this one right here. All right, now you see right here in this illustration that if you add all of these up, so this is only 5 of them, and it's coming in right here with the circuit coming in, it's coming in a wireway, and he's tapping off these services, okay, service conductors coming in, and all of these together add up to 350. But the conductors right here are only good for 310, okay, so it's a 350 KCmil copper. The conductors coming in is good for 310 amps. It's okay that the ratings of all of the breakers will exceed the ampacity of the conductor, as long as you've done a load calc. Now this calculation was done and it shows that there's 305 amps of load here, right? It's 305 amps of load that has been calculated right here, okay? So these conductors are good for 310 amps. So it's perfectly okay. Because the actual calculated load is only 305 amps. So the 310 is fine, conductor's fine. The fact that the overcurrent devices exceed the rating of the service conductors is perfectly okay as well, because we did a load calculation. And that's what it's saying. So those are the 3 most popular examples of wanting to, when you, the general rule is you protect the conductor at its ampacity, okay? And then, of course, then you have these various exceptions that will come into play, okay? All right. Next is for 1 and 2 family dwelling applications. We did talk about this the other day. This was 230.85. What's up, Terrence? Glad to have you here. And so we talked about this emergency disconnect. Obviously, they have to be located outside for the 1 and 2 family. They have to be readily accessible. Of course, we all know we have a definition of readily accessible. It's in Article 100. And so, again, one of the things is I show is this example. Now, back in the old day, or in jurisdictions that are like 2017 or earlier, you don't have this requirement. Right here, but here you notice right here where the meter is outside, and this would be a violation because they're not readily accessible. They're inside, and they have to be out. Now, let me take that back. They're probably readily accessible from the inside, but they're required to be located outside of the dwelling, okay? Now, how would I fix this, by the way, just as any electrician? Then I would probably, instead of this being, I'm sure this is being backfed from this meter, I would come out here and come out and put a disconnect right here and a disconnect right here. And then I got to knock out here and then I got to knock out here. So I would probably abandon and plug the ones that are coming through here, remove those conductors. Okay, and I would come out with out of the side here, LB. I probably, or actually a nipple straight over into the, I put it up higher here. So I'd come out with the nipple out of the meter into this disconnect, and then out of the bottom of the disconnect, I would come out of that straight back into this panel using probably the knockout on the left side, and same on the right. And then outside, I would have my disconnect outside. And then, of course, that changes these panels inside to become remote distribution panels and do it that way if I want to do it and make these the service disconnect. If I do not want to make these the service disconnect outside, I just want them to be the disconnecting mean, then I can use a listed disconnect. Okay, y'all saw those options in 230.85 yesterday. Then I could put a disconnect out here, same kind of concept. And it still would be service conductors going through it and going into these panels, and it would still be compliant with 230.70, the service disconnect outside or nearest point of entry. Okay, so it would be in, and then I would meet the emergency disconnect rule out here, and I would have to label it accordingly, saying it is not a service disconnect, it's not a service, that it is just a disconnecting means, that type of thing. So, and it would be the emergency disconnect. Right, so that's just many ways to do it. And that way you would not have to change over and separate the grounds and the neutrals in this panel if you just put a disconnect outside, listed disconnect, and not a service disconnect. Okay, just different things to think about and how you could make this compliant if you didn't want to have to separate everything in the panel inside. That would be simply a matter of just putting a listed disconnect outside and rerouting the service conductors through that disconnect and then into the panel. Get what I'm saying? What's up, Jonathan? Good morning. Glad to have you here. What's up, David? Glad to have you here. I see you, Greg. All right. Discussion. The reasoning behind grouping of service disconnects at a central location is if a building catches on fire, it is critical that firefighters disconnect the electrical supply to the building quickly, not having to tear it up, not having to try to knock off a meter or cut the power lines and create and raise it to another hazard. Again, water and electricity do not mix. Typically, contaminated water makes it worse. And obviously, spraying on the water onto the smoke and the soot and the whatever is just not going to be a good thing. So again, it's all about that. Now, this tried to get in back in 2017. It fell a little short. It got in 2020. It's even more clarified in 2023. But that's the reason. Now, grouping of disconnects at one location ensures that first responders do not waste valuable time searching for the disconnecting means. And it's another reason why, if we have other sources of power on a facility, that we need labeling to let them know where these locations are so that they can disconnect things quickly. Okay. Again, it's all started because the first responders, and it didn't get enough traction in 2017, but it sure as heck did in 2020, as well as expanding in 2023. All right. Service equipment. Service equipment rated 1,000 volts or less shall be marked to identify it as being suitable for use as service equipment. Okay, now this again, you've had some equipment that's suitable for only for use as service equipment, and that's all it can be. And then you have other equipment that is, and that'll say suitable for use only as service equipment. And then there's other equipment that will be suitable for use as service equipment, which means that it can be utilized, for example, as a remote distribution panel, depending on whether or not you take out that main bonding jumper and things like that. So if you get a piece of equipment that says suitable only for use as service equipment, then that's the only use that it can have. And we routinely see this where people buy something, they use this piece of equipment, and they try to use it somewhere else, and it's not going to work. Okay? If it says that it's suitable only for use as service equipment, that's it. Okay? But the vast majority of the equipment that is suitable for use as service equipment could also be used for other than service equipment, that type of thing, okay? All service equipment shall be listed in field labeled 230.66a, okay? So you're gonna label it as, well, let's go look at 230.66, by the way. Just so we can, since we're kind of following our normal rule of when we're using like a Fast Tracks program, we're gonna look things up. So A, it says service equipment rated 1,000 volts or less shall be marked to identify it as being suitable for use as service equipment. All service equipment shall be listed in field evaluated. Suitable for use as service equipment. We refer to that in trade as SUSE rated, okay? It's a common marking found on equipment that is used in the service location, okay? That type of thing. So yeah. Now, again, notice down here, that's a good thing about Link for those that have Link. It's kind of like the handbook, if you will. It says the markings suitable only for use as service equipment indicates that the grounded conductor or neutral terminal bus is not able to be electrically isolated, which is what you need on a remote distribution panel downstream. So when you see something that is suitable only for use as service equipment, then you have to be careful, because if you use it downstream, then you could have an improper case to neutral, and that would be an issue of 250.24b, okay? And that's in the 2023 NEC. So you'd have an issue with that. So we have to make sure that you don't. So that's why you have to pay special attention to the equipment, okay? What you're buying. You're just not buying it. Look in there and look at the labels. Let's see. Each service disconnect must be permanently marked. Identify it as a service disconnect. That's 230.70b. Okay, so you see our little illustration here. It is suitable for use as service equipment. It has a main on it. It has its rating on it. Obviously, that's on the escutcheon, on the actual breaker itself. Okay. Other things to remember: a one family dwelling service disconnecting means must have a minimum rating. That's the service disconnecting means must have a minimum rating of 100 amperes. Now, this is important to go look at, because that's the thing that we, with single family dwellings, we hear it, 100 amps. That's a exam prep. That's a low hanging fruit. 100 amps minimum services for a dwelling, one family dwelling, 100 amps, 100 amps. But what about individual dwelling units of a multifamily building? Now, they're not held to that 100 amps, okay? So let's go look at that in the NEC. We'll look at 230.79. And let's go down there really quickly. These are the ratings, and you'll see the various ratings. This is the ratings of the service disconnect. Again, this is the rating of the service disconnect itself. It's irrelevant to having to do a load calculation. For example, I could do a load calculation on a single family dwelling and come up to be 80 amperes is what my actual calculated load is. However, we have to remember that here, the service disconnecting means cannot be rated less than 100 amps for a one family dwelling, okay? So we may have a value that we do a load calc on, but we also have a rating that the service disconnect mean cannot be rated less than 100 amperes, that type of thing. So here's what it says. The service disconnecting means shall have a rating, okay? That is the disconnecting means, not less than the calculated load to be carried. So got to do a load calc, got to know that it's going to handle the load. Determined in accordance with Part 3, which is the Part 3 of 220, which is standardish type of calculations. Part 4, okay, that's your optional type of calculations. Part 5, farm applications, things like that. In Article 220, as applicable, it says in no case, even after your calculation, no case shall the rating be lower than specified in 230.79 A, B, C, or D, okay? So again, we won't talk about the one circuit, like to say running to a garage or something like that. We won't talk about two circuits running to a garage or something like that. We're going to focus on the one family dwelling, because I'm probably doing an episode about detached structures coming up. That's a shameless plug. We'll probably doing a multi-part series on everything you need to know about a detached structure, from the grounding electrode system to doing the load calc, okay? So teaser alert, probably going to have one of those. And in that series that we do here on Coffee Hour, we're going to cover everything as if you just pulled up with your tools, dropped them off, and we're having to supply this detached structure, Okay, so that's a series that's coming up as well on Coffee Hour. So for all you subscribers out there who follow us each week, okay, we're constantly learning new stuff. Okay. All right, so this is your one family dwelling. It says for a one family dwelling, which is defined in Article 100, by the way, it says the service disconnecting means shall have a rating not less than 100 amps. So the rating has to be 100 amps. Okay, at least 100 amps. Now, what about all others? All right, so all other installations, for example, people ask all the time, so if I have a multifamily building, what about the individual dwelling units? Well, those are different. For those installations, the service disconnecting means shall have a rating of not less than 60 amperes, typically more than that, but that is for all other applications that are not covered in A, B, and C. Okay, so if your application's not covered in A, B, or C, then you have that application. Now, incidentally, if we go back and look here at Article 100, just so we can kind of get wrap our head around this, I'm sure you all look at 100, and you'll notice that 100 has dramatically grown in 2023. That's because all of the definitions got pulled out of the .2 areas. We're using the .2 for other things now. Got pulled out of there. And not all, I don't think all articles removed the .2. I think there was some disagreements in some of the code panels to move everything. But I think the vast majority, if not everything, is moved over into 100 when it comes to articles. But what we want to look at is the dwelling. So here is a one-family dwelling, by the way. And it's a building that consists solely of one dwelling unit. That's it. So if my code makes a reference to one-family dwelling, that type of thing, then that's what it is, okay? Two-family dwelling is a building that consists of two dwelling units, okay? Duplex, for example. A multifamily building is a building that contains three or more dwelling units, okay? So triplex, that type, quadplex, things like that, apartment complex, okay? That's a multifamily dwelling. What is a dwelling unit? A dwelling unit is a single unit, one single unit, provided complete and independent living facilities for one or more persons, including it's got to have permanent provisions for living, sleeping, cooking, and sanitation. Okay, so this is example right here. Just because I like to cover these things. Oops, that's not going to work. Hold on. It won't let me zoom in. So here you see bath area. Here, sleeping, living, eating, has all the elements to be considered a dwelling unit. Okay. Why is that important? Because we'll have many references in the code where it talks about a dwelling unit. So, for example, where dwelling units are referenced throughout the NEC, again, the word dwelling unit, which is different than making a reference to a one-family dwelling or a single-family dwelling. It says dwelling unit as referenced throughout the NEC for things like hotels, motels, similar occupancies that have permanent provisions for living, sleeping, cooking, and sanitation are also classified as dwelling units. Okay, so that's why you might see something up in hotels and motels, and it makes a reference to a dwelling unit. That's because if that unit has all the elements, cooking, sleeping, sanitation, and living, then it is treated like a dwelling unit. Okay. Say dorm rooms are not usually considered a dwelling unit because they don't meet all the criteria. It doesn't have all the elements. Usually they probably don't have the cooking. That's probably in a mess hall or a mess or a cafeteria or a commissary or whatever, depending on what you're dealing with in the dorm. They'll have separate facilities for that. So that's why we have separate rules for dorm requirements, because it doesn't necessarily meet the definition of a dwelling unit, but it probably has its own requirements that have to be met. So that's I just wanted to do a breakdown of those different things because some people get those type of things confused when it comes to dwelling unit. Now, you'll notice that they might say single family dwelling. That is synonymous with a one family dwelling. Okay. Wish that they would harmonize that and try to keep the same terminology to avoid confusion. Yes, but to my knowledge, nobody has submitted that. So we have to understand that when it says single family dwelling, that we're talking about a one family dwelling. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let's continue on. So neither service disconnecting means nor overcurrent protected devices other than supplementary overcurrent protection can be located in bathrooms. Okay, so you can't have service disconnects in or overcurrent protection in a bathroom. However, it does change a little bit. I will show you that in the code. You can have supplementary overcurrent protection in a bathroom, which may be supplementary to the actual equipment that's in the bathroom for whatever reason. You just can't have it. So let's go look at that real quick just to kind of get an idea. 240.24, that's where I want to look first because this is the overcurrent protection one rather than the service because there is a difference. And I could tell you a little story. But just so you know, if you're looking, and I know none of you would put the service in your residential bathroom anyway. So I get that. So that's why we're looking at 240 first, because this is more specific just to the overcurrent protection requirement. So if you go look at 240, and we'll look at 24. All right. So here, again, under the accessibility rules, okay, and if you're preparing for an electrical exam and they talk about placement of overcurrent devices and things like that, then think accessibility, thinking the ability for somebody to get to it, that type of thing. And then under overcurrent protected device inside of your index, you'll see something that references accessibility. And so try to connect the two. When you see the word accessibility, you're thinking, okay, it's where it's located, that type of thing. It might help you navigate a little bit better. So we go down here to right here, not in bathrooms. So this is general. This has nothing to do with service. This is just overcurrent protection in general. It says overcurrent protection devices, circuit breakers, fuses, what have you, other than supplementary, which may be integral to the piece of equipment that is in there. Okay, so it may have fuses in it. That's overcurrent protection. But if that is supplemental to the equipment and not its actual overcurrent protection for the circuits, the conductors that are supplying the equipment, then the supplemental is for the equipment. That is fine. That can be in there. Okay. Shall not be located in bathrooms. You see they added this. Also not in showering facilities, because this was not in the 2020. Showering facilities or locker rooms with shower facilities. Okay, and it should make common sense, but sometimes unless you say it, people don't follow it. So there you go. So you can't have the overcurrent protection. Now, that's the overcurrent protection in bathrooms, right? Just overcurrent. And so that's just a general rule. All right. Now, let's go look at the 230 when it comes to service disconnecting means. Okay. Because again, a service disconnecting means may or may not, it may be just a disconnect. Okay. So let's go look at 230 70A. So let's go 230 70 general for service disconnecting means. Okay. All right. And so we're here and we're going to look down at, let's see here, right here. Okay. Notice that here. Okay. So here is 230.70. So this is the location of where you can put a service disconnecting means. Okay. All right. So where can you put it? All right, so readily accessible location, again, outside nearest point of entry, but then it has right here, bathrooms. Oops, right here, bathrooms. It says service disconnecting means shall not be installed in bathrooms, okay? So you're not going to install service disconnecting means in a bathroom, right? So there you go. All right, let's see here. Where was I back at the lesson? All right, here we go. We're at the multiple disconnects. We got it right here at the end of this episode. So we're talking about this scenario right here. So here's the service coming into this wireway, and they've done a load calc, and they have sized their conductors coming out of here for each one of these loads in question. So they've done the load calcs on each one of these as well, and they know that these conductors right here are protected by whatever service disconnecting mean that's in here. Right? And they're going to keep from overloading the conductor that's being supplied from this service tap coming down. because these are going to be sized based on whatever the load is. And we have to assume that these conductors here and all of this, that this combined load the ratings of all of these, they may exceed the rating of the conductor. But this is why it's so important for you to know how to do load calcs, because the overall load calculation cannot exceed the rating of this conductor. So this could be, again, this could be added these up, that could be 350 amps a breaker. An inspector may come out and say, and you may have run into this, where they come out and they go, look, sir, you have 400 amps of load here. This is a 100 amp breaker. This is a 50. This is a 50. Well, and they add them all up, and then they look at your conductor and they go, you can't do that. And you go, yeah, under the general rule, that would be the case under the 230.90. But, sir, I am using an exception. And as long as I've done a load calc and I provide you that load calc and I show you that the calculated load is not going to exceed the rating of the service conductors, right? And that I sized all of the conductors that are supplying each one of these disconnects is sized equal to or greater following the rules of 230.90 for whatever the load is on these individual disconnects, then I am okay. And it's all based on a load calc. So the good news is the load calcs that you do today are probably more conservative, right? So if you do the load calculation, you're going to be fine, because there is a lot of diversity that plays in. There's loads that are not all on at the same time. And so look, you have to kind of go with the history of how we've come up with calcs, and you have to trust it, right? I guarantee you put Cy Porter in front of this, he won't have a clue. That's why you're the electricians. He wouldn't have a clue. Okay? He's just a home inspector who wouldn't have any idea how this works. And that's why you electricians get the big bucks. And then you're not the fanboys. You guys are out here really working it and learning these type of things. Okay. All right. So that's what we got here. So what you'll see here is the 2 to 6 disconnecting means shall be permitted for each service permitted by 230.2. Okay. So the rule of 230.2 is you're allowed one service to a building. Okay. So this is the one service coming in right here. This is it. Service lateral coming in. This is it. And you can have up to 6. Now, you could have in 230.2, you could have a capacity of a building that would require more than one service to that building based on its capacity. It needs a lot more, like over 2,000 amps. It's like, oh, I got to have more than one service to this building. Well, you have allowances for that in the code under 230.2. But the general rule is one service per building. But we do have the allowances, and it's up to 6 disconnects, service disconnects per service. Okay. All right. You also have some allowances under the exceptions 1, 3, 4, and 5 under 230.40. We will be covering that in a different episode, because that is another important rule that people tend to get confused about. So we will definitely be covering that in an upcoming episode as well. But that is basically the same concept of the number of disconnects that you can have, that type of thing per service. It says the 2 to 6 service disconnecting means shall be permitted to consist of types of equipment specified in 230.71B1 through B6. Okay, so looking at the different types of that we have, that would be, so let's go to the code. We're already right here. So the maximum number of disconnects, right, is, okay, each service shall have only one disconnecting means unless the requirements of 230.71B are met. Okay, so here's the 2 to 6. So you have one service, one disconnect, but you're able to go up to 6. All right, but you have to meet these caveats, and it has to be one of these types. Now, in here, it used to be where you could have the one cabinet with the 6 breakers in it, 6 disconnect, 6 throws type of rule, and that was okay. Still okay for feeder applications, not because you do have a breaker upstream that you can kill power to that. It is not acceptable for services anymore. But you have different options down here. Like I can have separate enclosures with main service disconnects in each enclosure. And you see me talk about the 12-inch by like 8-inch or whatever. Just it's all it is a switch service disconnect. Okay, you can have 6 of those mounted. You could have panel boards with main breakers. So you could have 6 panels mounted with main breakers in them. That's okay. 6 individual panels. That's okay. In switchboards, you can have an option in there. We have separate vertical sections. Okay, and you can have that installed that way. Again, so you have a bunch of different options down here. Okay, to be able to do that, you can have meter centers with the main service disconnect. Disconnect the means for each metering. Right, that type of. So you have many options to do this. I don't know if we have some illustrations. There you go. So you see this right here. So in here you've got everything, and each one of these have their own. Right, so it's coming in here and it's coming through here. These are separate. If this was all one enclosure, that wouldn't work. But these are separate meter centers, separate enclosures. This works. This is perfectly fine, and this is considered one. Now, if I had a building that the capacity was greater, then I could have another set of these over here, okay? And then I could have up to 6 for that as well, that type of thing, okay? So this is, again, and as you can see here, revising the permission for up to 6 service disconnects require each disconnecting means to be individual in separate enclosures or separate compartments, allows for installer maintainer to operate a single disconnect that de-energizes conductors and circuit parts except for the line side of the disconnecting mean. Obviously, the line side lugs are still going to be hot coming in. This enhances safety by reducing the likelihood of an incident with energized conductors and circuit parts in the service equipment on the load side of that termination. So again, here allows you to be able to disconnect each one of these individually. And this is okay. But if this was like one big enclosure, like one big cabinet, I don't know why there's a delay. Sorry, folks. If this was one big cabinet, then you have main lugs at the top. And then when you removed one of the breakers, it would still be a hot bus, right? So if you're going to be working on it. So here, this allows you to disconnect each one individually. Again, or you could have 6 separate panels, that type of thing, okay? All of that scenario. All right, let me get back here. Did I miss a congratulations to somebody? Somebody? Ryan, good morning. Test is this morning. Positive vibes, Ryan. You got this. Stay focused. You'll get it. Stay focused on it. Do the 3-wave method. Don't get bogged down on anything. Again, first wave, answer what you know right away. Mark what you don't. Second round, go for the ones that you marked. If you answer it, uncheck it. Keep on going. Every one that you answer, uncheck it. Third wave, you have to give an answer. If you still are a little concerned about it, do a good logical reasoning and remove the obvious. And then if you answer it, but you're still not sure, you can leave it marked, but make sure that you answer it before you go to the next one in the third wave, okay? And work it down like that. First wave, spend about a minute on a question. Second wave, you can spend a minute, minute and a half. Third wave, answer that question. But again, don't get bogged down. That's the best advice I can give somebody on that. And you've got this. You're going to get it, all right? All right? All right. So the total circuit breaker or fuse ratings, we saw this earlier. So all of these right here could add up to be more than whatever the ampacity of the service conductors, and that's okay as long as we have a calculated load and those conductors can handle the calculated load. Then we're okay, right? All right, panel boards. In addition to the requirements in 408.30, a panel board shall be protected by an overcurrent protected device having a rating not greater than that of the panel board. So people ask me this all the time. If this panel board was rated 200 amps, okay, then could I protect it with a 150 amp rated device? Yes. If the breaker overcurrent device is rated 200 amps, can I have it protecting a 150 amp rated bus? No. No. So one of the things that it says also is this overcurrent protection device shall be located within the cabinet or at any point on the supply side of a panel board. So this is an important one that people lose sight of all the time. And I get this question all the time. is, can I protect a 200 amp rated main lug only panel with a 150 amp rated breaker that's feeding it? And yes, that's fine, as long as the panel at the end is equal to or greater than the rating of the overcurrent protection that's protecting it. That's fine, but you can't do it the other way around, right? I can't have a 200 amp breaker supplying a remote distribution panel, let's say, where the panel is only rated 150 amps. Not going to work. Okay? You're going to be the potential for allowing more current to be what on that panel than it was rated for, and it may impact the SCCR ratings on that panel as well. So that's one of the things that people ask about all the time, and it's, I like to think that's common sense, but sometimes we have to say it again to make sure that people are aware of that. So if I'm out in the market and all I can find is a 200 amp remote distribution panel, and maybe it has a main breaker, it doesn't need the main breaker in it if it's going to be in the same building that the service is in, right? Then you're putting it in a basement, let's say, and you're like, dude, I can't find a 150 or I can't find 100. Well, let's use a more realistic example. I have a 150 amp panel, main lug only. Can I supply it with a 100 amp breaker? Absolutely, you can. People say, well, I have the potential to load it more than 150. Well, you always have to do a load count. Okay, just because a panel says that it's rated 150 doesn't mean that there's not other things I have to take into consideration. Okay, that's, people want things to be so easy that it fits together like a simple puzzle, but it's more like electrical is more like a Jenga, right? You have to be careful of all the pieces when you're working with it. And so now, doesn't need to have a main breaker if it's in the same building. It can be a main lug only because it is protected upstream by the overcurrent protected device. Okay, where would that be where would that be different, and where I'd be more prone to having a main breaker? For me, probably going to a detached structure where I'm required to have a disconnecting means there as well. And so requirements to have a disconnecting means there, I'm probably going to want the main breaker scenario rather than so that I don't have to buy additional breakers to go on the outside or something like that, right? I'm probably going to just get it in a main breaker and be done with it. But inside of the same building where your service is and you're feeding a remote distribution panel, I can use a main lug only. And people say, well, it's always got to have a breaker to protect the bus. Not true. Okay, the breaker upstream that's protecting that feeder is protecting everything downstream and protecting that bus, as long as you understand the rules of 408.36. Okay. But again, that does answer a question that I get from time to time. Can I have a 100 amp breaker and it supply a 150 amp rated panel? And what about if it has a 150 amp main breaker? Can I still do that? And the answer is yes, because that main breaker at this point is nothing more than a disconnect. That's it. You're still protected at the feeder. Okay, so I get that question a lot. All right, it says, next it says, a grounded conductor shall not be connected to the normally non-current carrying metal parts, and that being the metal framing that's normally they don't carry any current. They would under ground fault, but they don't normally carry any current. That's what we talk about when we say normally non-current carrying. That's those metal parts that under normal everyday use is not going to carry current. Could it carry current under a fault condition? Sure, temporarily. But a normally non-current carrying metal part is any of those metal parts that may enclose electrical parts, but it's not going to, under normal conditions, it's not going to carry current, okay? So normally non-current carrying metal parts of equipment, you cannot connect the grounded conductor to those non-current carrying metal parts, to equipment grounding conductors, or be reconnected to ground on the load side of the service disconnecting means, except as otherwise permitted in Article 250. And that would only be in an application prior to 1996, I believe, when you didn't have any metal pass between buildings, and they only ran 3 conductors there. New construction, never going to happen. You run 4 conductors out there. There is no exception. There is no way to drive a ground rods and do a grounding electrode system and connect that over to the grounded conductor and do all that at the detached. Not going to happen, okay? You have to separate the grounds and the neutrals at your detached structure. Okay. And to be honest with you, you have to separate the grounds and neutral even to the sub panel or remote distribution in the same structure, like down in the basement or in a garage. If it's a remote distribution, it's downstream of the service. You can't have it where you'd have objectionable currents, circulating currents, and the potential to energize normally non-current carrying metal parts. We do it at the service. We don't do it downstream of the service, okay? Cause a whole lot of touch potential problems, can cause objectionable current issues, which can have negative effects on new circuitry, equipment that we're installing now in smarter homes. And some of that stuff is now safety driven, right? AFCIs, GFCIs, surge protection devices, everything's getting smarter. So we have to be careful when it comes to things like objectionable currents, okay? All right. It looks like we ran over, so we're going to get into common trip single pole breakers tomorrow, talk about fuses. We're going to even do conductor sizing tomorrow, folks. Okay? We're going to cover all of that stuff in tomorrow's episode. So let's go on and do some giveaways and get everybody on that. Let's see if I've got my list here. Whoa, I'm filling that up pretty quickly. Hold on. I get another piece of paper to do this. All right, got to get another one here to make this list. Okay, so let's go and let's do some spinning and winning. Hopefully y'all got something out of the juice is flowing at least. Great episode, learned a lot. There's a lot of good stuff there that you can go back and watch on a replay. There we go. We haven't seen the Minimalist Wallet one come up in a while. So Minimalist Wallet, you're in the drawing for the Minimalist Wallet. A couple of those emails I think are going out today also for those that won in the first. Instructions for the Minimalist Wallet for those that won that. I will double check who that's going out to. Jeff did send me. Haas, Galloway, and Melting Toast. If you don't get your email in the next day or two, reach out to us again, but you're the ones that won the Minimalist Wallet. We need to find out which wallet you need, Journeyman or Master, and the name you want to have on it, that type of thing. Okay, all right, let's spin again. Jonathan, I think you already have, or you're already on the Fast Tracks tube. So we'll spin again for you. John, I see you in the house, John. John, you got hooked up, didn't you, with the software for the estimating software? I believe he sent you instructions. Be careful; they were very detailed instructions. All right, so Jonathan, we've got you for the Minimalist Wallet as well. Drawing for that. Okay, congratulations to be in that drawing. Do it again here. Thank you all for hanging in there. In fact, the Minimalist Wallets, I just did one for my brother this weekend. He came over and he is worn the hell out of it. There's no package, John. He emailed you. I was copied on the email. Need to check your junk mail. He emailed you the instructions for how to get started in your estimating software. He emailed it. I saw it. I was copied on it. So he did send it. I saw it. It came to you, so check your junk mail, okay? Because I saw it. He included me in the email to you with all the instructions for how to get your estimating software that you won. All right, check your junk mail. If not, I'm going to have to figure out how to reach out back to him. Because nothing's coming in the mail. It's all online. Definitely go check your junk mail. It needs to be on here on multiple platforms there, doesn't it? Jonathan, You got your register for Trade Hog. You are cleaning up today in your registrations. There you go. He's learned the secret of being on multiple platforms. It always seems at the end. Hey, Jonathan, same way. That's such a true statement. I don't know how many times I've been looking for something and it's in the junk, and I'm like, I didn't designate it as junk. Why did it end up there? All right. So let's see here, Jonathan. You've got. Let's see. Did you just win again? Please send me fast tracks, please. You got to win it, John. We don't give it away. Let's see here. Jonathan, did you just win again? Yeah, I think you did. Boy, I tell you what, you are racking it up today, dude. Now you got the NFC card, promotional card registration for that. Dude, you are cleaning up. Okay. I don't control it, Jonathan. It's automatic, bro. Just spin it and win it. You're in a drawing, so you haven't necessarily won it. All right, John, you're studying for your master. You can go get our Fast Tracks program, but I don't give away. I'm in business, bro. I gotta make a living. Mike Caldry, you won instant wire fraud. So, Mike, email us with your mailing address so that I can get you a wire waffle. And for those that don't know what a wire waffle is, this is a wire waffle. This wire waffle allows you to put up to 16 14.2s or 16 12s through one large opening, which is a violation of 312.5C for you to bring all your NMs through one opening like a TA or whatever. People do it. This is what started this thing out in Arizona with the home inspector and Cy Porter. Is what a joke. He says, well, we allow that in Arizona, and he lied. He made it all up. In fact, they didn't allow it. But here's a solution. Okay, so rather than promoting fictitious stuff or being a wannabe, he really learned that there are products out there. So there you go. There is up to 16 cables can go through that right there. There you go. All right, Mike, so make sure you send me your information. Email it to info@electricalcodeacademy.com, or you can send it to you can send it through paulabernathy.com if you want. However you want to do it. You can use our contact us button on fasttracksystem.com. Totally up to you. Erie says, let's see. John says, "It's my first time win. You gotta win the drawing." So there we go. All right. Let's do it again here. So send me that information, Mike. We'll get you one of these if you want to use it. If you don't, let me know, and we'll save it for somebody else. So I'm giving away these wire waffles. I think it's not only are you going to nail that test today, but you also get a wire waffle as well. So let me know your information. I will send it out and you can give it a try. Okay, it works in any 2.5 KO on the panel, and it allows you again to take up to 16 14.2s or 16 12.2s, or it'll allow you to take 8 12.3s or 8 12 or 8 14.3s, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so let's go again. OGs originated. I can't make it pick anybody, y'all. Come on now. That would be, if I did that, that would be like everybody arguing that I accepted a jumbo jet as a gift. Damn, what is up with this wire waffle thing? All right, instant wire waffle. Adam French, you also get a wire waffle. Dude, I'm going to run out of these damn wire waffles. Hunter's going to have to send me more wire waffles. So again, Adam, if you think you can try it and put it to use, then send me your contact information. We will send you out the wire waffle. Let's do it again. It's another damn wire waffle. I'm going to have a fit. I'm going to go wire waffle ballistic. I think it's a neat idea. I wish I had thought of it. actually, Paul, you have a Master the NEC course. You won that last time, and you have access to that, Paul. This is the enhanced. It's exactly the same. The only difference is this has the database questions in it for exam prep. So do you want to stay in the drawing or do you want to spin again? That type of thing. I'll let you decide, Paul, but it's essentially the same. The only difference is the one you have, Mastering the NEC, does not have the database questions. That's the 800 plus questions database. That's the difference, because the Mastering the NEC program is not designed for exam prep. You said you'll take it. Okay, you're in the drawing. We'll leave you in there, so you have a chance to win that one as well. Okay, so we'll put you in it. Okay, it doesn't hurt to have more than one. That's for sure. Okay, and in fact, we talked about the 2026. If you win both of them, then we can do a swap deal or whatever. Don't worry. All right. So 2023 enhanced. Okay, and John's going to say, "Why don't you gift it to him?" I'm waiting for that to come in. All right. All right. So let's do it again. All right. We're spinning. Oh, wait a minute. Last one. Good luck, everybody. Get in on the drawing for June 30th drawing, which is my birthday, by the way. This is a good omen, Ryan. You've done gotten a drawing twice. This is a good omen for you. This is the NFC card. For those that don't know what the NFC card is, it is a very hefty steel plate card that promotes coffee hour, but it also has NFC chip built into it. You can reprogram this chip if you want, or you can leave it on here and promote our show and all of our courses or our products to your people on jobs. Or you can change it. It's easy to change. Very simple. Takes a few seconds. Free mobile app that you can download and do it. There you go. All right, Ryan. It's going to be a big day for you, buddy. You're going to get your license. You're going to get your, you're getting a wire waffle, and you're registered for the NFC card to promote that beautiful new license that you get after today. Okay? It's going to be a great day for you. Positive thoughts, my friend. You've got this. All right, folks. That's it for today. I appreciate all of you. I went a little over coffee hour, as I normally do. Appreciate you. Join us tomorrow, which we are going to get into talking about tripping of circuit breakers, common trips, single pole, identified handle ties. We're going to talk about cartridge fuses, ratings, a little bit of insight on those. And we're going to do conductor sizing tomorrow. And we'll look at 310.12 again, which you probably do day in, day out. And you don't even understand why you do it. Some of you do. They've been here for a while. You understand. We're going to talk about all of that, and we'll talk about some installation. We'll talk about Edison-based fuses, S-type fuses, talk about the various ratings, which are low-hanging fruit on exams, by the way. And then we'll get into grounding and bonding of services, main bonding jumpers. We're going to talk a little more about remote distribution panels, or sub-panels that people call it. We'll talk about grounding electroconductor, bonding of services. We got a lot we're covering in this series, folks. So we're only up to number 5. This is a multi-part series, so make sure you come back tomorrow at 8 a.m. All right? Appreciate all of you. Till next time, stay safe. God bless.